¿Qué tal mis queridos guerreros y guerreras? ¿Cómo están? Espero que muy bien. El día de hoy les tengo una entrevista muy interesante. Es con el Sifu Mark Phillips, bastante reconocido a nivel mundial y sobre todo en internet, ya que tiene un canal originalmente dedicado al Wing Chun y muchos lo considerarían una autoridad del Wing Chun. Sin embargo, él hace las cosas de una manera diferente. Practica boxeo, judo, jiu-jitsu y bueno, él les hablará más de lo que practica más adelante. Su canal hoy en día está dedicado a la defensa personal, se llama Fight Science, estudia la ciencia del combate, la ciencia del conflicto. Todos los links van a estar aquí abajo en la descripción, pero antes quiero pedirles una disculpa porque hubo un problema en la grabación. Aún sigo descubriendo, aprendiendo a hacer estas cosas y la primera mitad de la entrevista no se grabó el video, ¿no? La videollamada que yo tenía con el Sifu, solamente se grabó el audio. Les pondré mientras tanto videos del Sifu entrenando, del Sifu practicando para que vayan viendo quién es. Sin embargo, pues en la segunda mitad ya lo van a poder ver platicando conmigo. Sin más, yo soy Tengu y comenzamos. Okay, Sifu Philip, first of all, I want to thank you so much for agreeing to this interview. I'm so excited. I've been a follower of yours for many years. I know all of my subscribers and everybody in the TENGU Marciales channel is very happy to see you here. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to come and speak to you guys about what we do. So it's an honor, of course. So thanks for the opportunity.
So I just told them a bit about who you are, but if you want, you could tell us more about who you are, your formation, your training.
I never really say much about myself. I've been a professional martial artist now for over 35 years, or approaching 35 years. So that's quite a long time. Professional meaning this is what I do for a living.
So we'll go to the first question. I have been a subscriber of your channel for, like I said, many years, and I have seen it change. First, I used to watch it because I was a Wing Chun practitioner when I lived in Mexico many years ago. I was a very hardcore Wing Chun practitioner, and I love to see your videos, your advices, and I've seen it change, evolve into something more dedicated to self-defense, to self-protection, to understanding the science of fighting, of conflict. Can you explain why did you make that leap, that evolution from one thing to the other?
That's a really good question. I think partly because my mindset changed a little bit more in presenting information. So I started to look more at the practicality of what we were doing rather than specific techniques. Well, basically, I have an interest in violent behavior. My doctorate, as some of your viewers may know or may not know, is in psychology, criminal psychology, and I'm an expert in violent crime. So it seemed quite natural, really, to bring out those experiences and that skill set where I'm discussing, ideas of violence, self-defense, and so on. And also, I've got another background in security as well, personal security.
Okay.
So it just made sense, really, that I started to bring all my three facets of expertise together and start to expand on what we do. Also, as well, I teach Wing Chun from a very conceptual sense, and I think the concepts can work and translate to self-defense in a very easy manner, and that's primarily why the evolution of the channel has changed. Right. So I try to emphasize the difference in my work between what's self-defense and what's martial art. And martial arts, I think, gives you a nice caveat, gives you a good foundation to start to learn to think about self-defense. But self-defense is a completely different animal.
As a Wing Chun instructor or Wing Chun master, I know that you also practice or have experience in other fighting styles, like I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or some grappling, some boxing. Why did you believe that it was important to increase your arsenal of techniques, to learn different fighting distances, to learn to do different things, fighting on the ground or different types of fighting?
It's a good question. To be open-minded. I think it's really important to be open-minded. And also, you can't control where a fight goes. If we were honestly talking about fighting, you can't control sometimes where it's going to be. For example, sometimes I meet people in my environment teaching Wing Chun, and I'll say to them, look, it's a good idea for you to learn how to defend yourself on the ground, how to ground fight, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example. And quite often people say, no, I don't need to do that because the fight's never going to go to the ground. you don't get a choice sometimes. Sometimes you might be in a situation where you trip over, you fall over, it might be an icy day. Someone might jump you and you might just lose your footing and end up on the ground, or literally the person overpowers you. I mean, you don't get the choice to choose what type of fight you're going to be in. So therefore, my attitude is I have to prepare for wherever the fight goes. And if I have a deficit in my skill area, in this case, ground fighting was a deficit. I felt that, Wing Chun's a great style. It's a very conceptual style, but again, it comes back to this as a martial art. So, it doesn't cover all the bases because it's an art. An art is a great expression of culture, a great expression of philosophy, thinking, even movement, but it's still something that's very raw. It's still very different. Mm-hmm. And whereas self-defense and fighting where someone attacks you and you're defending your life, essentially, is very raw, it's very real. So, to give an honest account to my students, I felt that if I was going to teach them how to defend themselves on the ground, that I should learn how to defend myself on the ground. So the other one was the expression of learning how to box, learning how to kick, learning how to wrestle. Judo is another area which I spend a lot of time working on as well. Now, the reason why is because, again, I didn't want to be narrow-minded when someone says to me, well, how do I deal with X, Y, Z? Well, if you want to learn how to deal with boxing, then you have to box. You can't just say, I'm going to do Wing Chun, I'm going to go and work on a wooden dummy, and all of a sudden I can deal with a boxer. It just doesn't work like that. I'm always open to new ideas and new philosophies and new ways of using my body in a combative situation.
And last question here. What advice would you give to Wing Chun practitioners who want to expand, who want to evolve? Like, technically, what advice would you give them?
My first advice would be to be open-minded, which is what I said earlier. I think you have to be open-minded to evolve. Right. If you're not, you won't evolve. I mean, and that is with any sphere of life anyway. It doesn't have to be just in martial arts. It just has to be with anything that we do. The problem, I think, with Wing Chun as a community, the way that we're going, is that many practitioners forget that this is still a very young martial art. It doesn't have some of the traditional ideas and thinking. Right. So for it to be developed and continue developing, you need an open mind. I think because there's this idea that traditional training is much better than modern training, has more value. I think there's a tendency to be quite narrow-minded in the development of training. I met many people that do Wing Chun and they'll say, look, we don't spar, we don't believe in sparring. And I'll say to them, well, what do you mean you don't spar? They say, well, we don't, it's a game. And I'm learning Wing Chun. Well, Wing Chun's about real-life confrontation. Well, firstly, let's put this into perspective. First of all, Wing Chun's not about real-life perspective or confrontation, because if someone attacks you, you're not going to see it coming anyway. You're going to be standing at a cash point and someone's going to walk up behind you, they're going to put a blade to your throat. You're not going to see it coming. Or you're going to be walking down the road and put a baseball bat in the back of your head and then empty your pockets and run off. That's what you're dealing with if you're learning this for self-defense. You're not learning, it's not a gentleman's challenge where you walk up to someone and slap them across the face with your glove and challenge them to a duel. It's not a duel. The other issue I was alluding to is that, if you want to compare your skills, if you want to say you're a young Wing Chun guy and you want to say, I want to compare my skills against a boxer or an MMA guy. Well, if you want to do MMA and you're a Wing Chun guy, then you have to box, you have to kick, you have to wrestle. And I think that's the problem with Wing Chun now. You watch a lot of videos of kids going in and having challenge fights with MMA guys, or deciding they want to do an MMA fight or a boxing fight or something, and they get beaten up badly, and then the comments on YouTube are, well, if Wing Chun was so good, why didn't it work? Well, it's got nothing to do with the style. The style is a conceptual style. It's not a style based on you have to look like you're doing Wing Chun.
Exactly.
There's a lot of MMA fighters. John Jones, I was watching his fight the other day. He moves like an architect. He would be is a perfect representation of Wing Chun concepts and ideas. I was watching him on the last fight this weekend with Smith. And he was fighting Smith. And he was basically holding his hands, crossing his hands like a trap, exactly the same what we do, where he traps on his hold, and then he was elbowing from there, and then going in and shutting his elbows. It's all the same tactics, and this is what I'm talking about, the tactics. So I think you do see expressions of Wing Chun in MMA, but you don't see it as with someone with a long bridge that's trying to do a martial art that's running in. That's just ridiculous.
I agree.
The other side of the coin is that people look in and expect to see these things translated, and they are already there.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of economy of motion and punching and moving efficiently, which is central to Wing Chun, you see it in many fighting styles. You see it in MMA all the time. But people want to argue, well, if Wing Chun's so good, why don't you see it? Well, you are seeing it. Mm-hmm. It is there. Wing Chun's a conceptual art. You're seeing the concepts of the art being applied in a strategy that is mixed with other martial arts. It is there. My advice would be, if you're training Wing Chun, believe in the style, but be open-minded that you have to maybe adapt the way you train. Right. And be open to different methods of training. It doesn't mean you don't do chi sao, it doesn't mean you don't do your forms, it doesn't mean you don't train on your wooden dummy. It just means that if you want to learn how to expand your skill set, learn how to deal with boxers, kickers, wrestlers, MMA guys, jiu-jitsu guys, whatever, then you have to learn aspects of those things so you can understand it in your mind, and then you can get some application. You can find those, join the dots with your skills, and then see if you can get it to work. And that's what's missing. Most people don't have the time or the willingness to do it.
Is there anything that you're working right now, any projects that you would like people to keep an eye out for?
Well, I think obviously our YouTube channel is the major thing,
okay.
Without a doubt. So if you haven't already subscribed to us, it's Fight Science. We have got a couple of projects. I often do travel and do different seminars in different countries as well. So check us out. Follow us on our social media: Facebook, Instagram. We're on all of those.
Thank you so much for agreeing to this. It's been amazing for me. Like I said, I've been a follower for a long time. So it's amazing to sit down and talk with you, and I know that a lot of my subscribers really appreciate it. I know I do, so thanks a lot, Sifu. I'm certain a lot of people learned a lot of things today, thanks to you being so open to come talk to us.
Thank you, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure all mine. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.